This week at Chadwick, there's a little bit of wiring, a little bit of landscaping, and also I bought a couple of these knock retaining walls. They're made of foam and you can cut them with a scalpel. So let's see how I got on. Hi, welcome back to Chadwick Model Railway. I'm Charlie. Nothing could have prepared me really for the comments in last week's video because I built this panel and there should be a link up here somewhere to show you how I did it. Because clearly I made a fundamental error. Yes, you can see the cables come down the front of the white fascia panel and connect up to the DS64s, the stationary decoders, and also the BDL168 on the far right hand side. The comments were numerous. Let's just say numerous, shall we? Easy, Tiger. The comments were numerous. So I've just spent the last 6 hours rewiring these little beauties. So hopefully now you can see much improved. However, in the fullness of time, there will be a black painted fascia panel that comes down here. But it is what it is. It's now much neater and it goes out the sides. It goes out of sight. Another obvious error which I made last week was the numbering of the points themselves. And on this end DS64, that's number 3, you can see that 2 points are numbered 81 and 82. Well, they're the points off the viaduct. Well, clearly I didn't do my research because when I entered these numbers into the spreadsheet that I used, surprise, surprise, there's another 81 and 82 which are programmed into the east fiddle yard. So clearly these 2 points need to be renumbered. Now I've also installed another catch point here on the main line coming out of the branch station area, and that's to protect the junction here with the lines that come up from the helix. In reality, you'd have that catch point along with a signal, just like say to protect this major junction up here. So that's the track laying and wiring complete on the board that runs up towards the branch line station. And as I've mentioned in a previous video, this is in a different district. So there is no power that jumps from this board over onto the viaduct board. Instead, there are insulated rail joiners. And the only thing that goes between the boards is the communication on the LocoNet cable. So that's how the whole thing works. Right, let's set about the landscaping. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and if you hit the little bell icon and go for all, then you get a notification every time I release a new video. Now last year in videos 98 and 99 I made quite a substantial hillside that went up here, and then also a tunnel affair to get to a fiddle yard, and also 2 tracks running around the front because this whole area was going to be a tail chaser. But since my knees couldn't stand the trouble of having a duck under, let's say, and I've adopted the use of the helix, I now still have that hillside to utilise to come along here to make more of an elaborate landscape on this board. So I'll pop it on and see if we can use it. As you can see, it is quite a substantial piece of landscape. And with it just sort of tucked in place, you can still see the seam between the 2 backdrops. But as I mentioned in previous videos, it doesn't take a great deal really to mask that colour change, if you see what I mean. And then another one of these can easily be constructed just to run down towards the branch line station. There's a little bit of work to be done here because there's a little bit of an issue just with the heights there. And this will need a little bit of straightening up. So what I intend to do next, though it does sound gruesome, is to cut this section back and sever it, so I can then sort of make a plan of how that one will sit and whether I can utilise this area here into this piece here. So the hill will flow down, because obviously it flows up from the viaduct sort of valley here, so it should, you know, have natural landform, because obviously the land was here before the railway. So clearly I need to mark out where this cut is going to be, and it's kind of down here, I think. These rocks will obviously have to go. And that's a good start. Trying to cut through this plaster cloth isn't necessarily easy, and in the past I've always used the wood saw, although it seems very agricultural. It is the easiest way of doing it, and it causes the least amount of mess, and you know, you retain as much of the detail as possible. Now the board's made of sheets of Celotex, and it's never going to be easier to cut it in there than out here. So it's just a case of trying to manage the mess, really. So I'm just going to try and cut it at a bit of an angle and see how we get on. Right, we'll pop it back in and see how it looks. Well, after several further cuts, here it is back in place, and as you can see, I've reduced the height. But what are we going to do with this edge? Well, I'd always had in the back of my mind to try out these knock retaining walls. What I've got to be aware of is obviously this end rises, and of course we need to keep the brick courses level, so I may have to trim away a bottom of this. And this, these coping stones on the top, they will have to come off, and then I'll need to lower the slope in accordance with the shape of the hill. Do we have enough room for a train to get by? Well, if we pull this little DMU through and I push this back, I think we can see that we can, and we'll have enough room there for cable trunking and the like. That obviously you'll see along all these railway areas. And what comes after that? Well, we need the next part of the hill to come here, just to show the way that the cutting is being made. Now I don't really recall why I ended up with this triangular gap in this board. I must have cut it out to allow more flex, but hey, it's got to be filled in now. So I've had a scratch around and found this old piece of MDF, not my favourite material, and some good old Gorilla wood glue. So slapping that on, we'll have that drying in no time. Now switching our focus to the knock retaining wall, I think what I need to do first off is to cut an angle on this bottom piece here, because obviously it doesn't want to go vertical, we need to lay it back, so I'll run a scalpel along and put an angle on the bottom, and also remove these coping stones from the top. And then once that's done, I'll need to run a pen along the inside of the wall, and that will give us the angle that I need to cut the stonework so that the stonework comes up the countryside, to make it a more interesting and realistic retaining wall. Now I've popped a fresh blade in this knife, so hopefully you can see the coping stones on the top I'm trying to trim away. Okay. So that's that off, and hopefully then I can reuse this piece when we finish the wall. And the last thing I mentioned was putting an angle on this, which means sort of cutting it that kind of way. Well, that's the sort of angle that we need. So we'll see how we get on. Okay, we'll see how that angle sits. Well, it's now the following day, and as you can see, I've changed my top because today's a gluing day and I don't want to ruin my Chadwick tops. Now I've also cut a small section off of here to allow for the rise of the board going up. And because this is removable, I can do this on the bench, and what I need to do now is mark off on the inside here where this will need to be cut. So if I can use my thigh, then hopefully run a line on here and give me an idea of where the landform rises up. And there we have it. Bit erratic, isn't it? Let's have a check. Yes, it doesn't quite go down, down that far, I think. And I've been online and had a look at retaining walls to see if they do actually, rise up, or whether they come up in steps. To be perfectly honest, they do both. So what I shall do, I imagine, is try and draw this as straight as I can, and then the odd step, and see how that looks. So I think I'll redraw some lines and give me a little bit of a safety margin, because the last thing I want to do is obviously cut off too much. I think this one here will definitely rise up with the land. So we'll try that. So we won't. We'll scrub that, and we'll just go for a soft incline, I think. Yep, we'll do that. Right, wish me luck. So when I make this cut, of course, because there's an angle here, I'll have to make this cut at an angle to make sure that this top surface then becomes horizontal. So cutting along here, I need to cut at an angle as well. Well, I can't deny that was a little more of a struggle, but yeah, it doesn't look too bad. It was lucky that I remembered we have had the angle on the top because of the angle at the bottom to get us a more of a parallel line at there. But there we go. So what I need to do now is, because we cut this one straight, this section here hasn't got that angle, if that makes sense. So I just need to trim that angle into there. Now, looking on YouTube, Nock recommend using a hot glue gun to secure this product. You can also put a hot air blower, something like a hot air paint stripper gun, and it allows you to bend it. But to be honest, this bend is quite small, so I'm sure hot glue will keep that in. So with my trusty Bosch, I shall glue this in. If you've never used a hot air hot glue gun before, just be aware when it says it's hot glue, it really is, and it takes absolutely no prisoners. It hurts like hell if you get it on your hands because it sticks. Quite an obvious statement really, Charlie, wasn't it? But yeah. And there it is. And then obviously we got these coping stones to go on, so a little bit more hot glue along the edges for that. And obviously we can always paint this up in due course. It's just really a case of getting it on there and making sure that it looks okay. Just needs a bit of a colour change really, doesn't it? And now if I bring our little DMU in, you can see the effect and the size of the wall. Super. Now to take the hillside down the other side, as it were, it's just a case of repeating what I've just done, and it's sizing the pieces up so that they fit kind of best. Obviously I've got some work to do along here, but just take a closer look at how these hillsides were made in the first place. And hopefully you can see there's a thin layer of Celotex here and then a larger layer there, and all this is the plaster cloth just laid over the top, and then woodland scenic scatter on top of there. If you're interested in making this kind of hillside, this is an extract from video 98, and as you can see it's a messy old game, but well worth the effort to get a decent hillside. Of course the difficult parts are obviously the joins, because I've got to hide this area here and then of course get the next piece of retaining wall to match the other, but it's not exactly rocket science, is it? So there's the second wall now in place, and it is quite difficult to see the seam. It blends in quite well, but it's quite easy to hide it a little more. To hide the join on the viaduct, all I did was made some downpipes out of plasticard tubing and stuck them over the join, which is the same sort of thing. It's quite easy to do for that retaining wall. But I think the overall effect of this wall is really quite decent. There's a lot of things on the market, whether it be plastic or plaster, but these foam walls are certainly worth considering. Now if you're interested in these walls, they're made by Knock, and it's 58065, and that's sort of slightly weathered, and this one here which isn't is 58055. Yeah, I quite like them really. I've got another so I can make up the patches to go into the gaps, and also I've got the other hillside to make in this area, and again I'll use the retaining wall on here, so it'll look, hopefully it should look pretty nifty. So there we are. Well, I quite enjoyed making those. However, be careful, scalpel blades are quite sharp and clearly you need them to cut them into shape. But when you've done them and made a good decent job of it, they are quite good, and with the hot glue gun they are very easy to manipulate. As I said earlier, Knock have made a couple of videos that are on YouTube to show how, what should we say, flexible their system is. You can also get one with abutments, which I didn't really like, and there's also a much rougher stone rather than a sort of a cast brick. There we go. That wraps this one up, and as usual, I'd like to thank the people who donate to the channel and of course my patrons. And if you'd like to be one, there's the button. There's also a button to subscribe, and don't forget to give us a thumbs up if you enjoy it, and a video here and here. I shall see you in a week or two. Thanks a lot, take care, bye bye.